Welcome back to The Life with the Browns. And let's get straight to the heart of why this story has shaken the sister-wives universe to its core. Kody Brown is no longer whispering, hinting, or protecting anyone's image. In her newly released book, which quietly hit Barnes and Noble shelves earlier than expected, she says the thing she's never been allowed to say out loud before. She likes who she is now more than who she ever was back then. More than Utah. More than the years of keeping sweet. More than the version of herself that lived inside that family system. And once that door opens, everything spills out. Within hours of early copies landing in readers' hands, Reddit lit up. Not with gossip, not with speculation, but with shock. Screenshots. Page numbers. People comparing notes in disbelief. Because what Kody reveals isn't vague or symbolic. It's precise, deliberate, and deeply unsettling. These aren't just emotional grievances. These are patterns, systems, rules. According to Kody, what happened behind closed doors wasn't accidental or thoughtless. It was structured, almost clinical. Kody's behavior, she writes, followed routines so specific they felt rehearsed. And the most disturbing part? Robyn's role wasn't peripheral. Kody describes a household where intimate details were shared, monitored, and emotionally enforced, where privacy didn't actually exist. One of the revelations hitting readers the hardest involves what Kody calls a pre-intimacy routine. In her own words, Kody insisted on a full 1-hour massage before anything romantic could happen. Not a few minutes. Not a casual gesture. A full 60 minutes where his wives were expected to focus entirely on his physical comfort. Every time. But here's where the tone of the book shifts, and where readers say their stomachs dropped. When Kody wanted that same care returned, when she asked for the same kind of touch and attention, she was flatly refused. Kody's explanation, as Kody recounts it, was chilling in its bluntness. Touching her didn't turn him on.
No softness. No compromise.
Just a no. Let that sit for a moment. An hour of labor demanded. Zero willingness to reciprocate. Kody writes that when she finally stopped complying with the massages, that's when the emotional pressure intensified. The mind games escalated. The atmosphere changed. What had once been framed as relationship issues revealed itself as something much more calculated, a cycle of control, withholding, and emotional erosion. And then there's Robyn. Kody alleges that Kody shared intimate details of his marriages with Robyn, details that should never have left the bedroom. Worse, she describes Robyn responding with sympathy, positioning herself as caring and concerned while simultaneously benefiting from the very system that caused the pain. Readers describe this as the most destabilizing revelation of all, the idea that one wife was not only aware of the dynamics, but quietly overseeing them. Early readers have been vocal about the emotional impact. One Reddit user said the description of Kody's wedding night made them cry for someone they'd never met. Another said the massage routine finally explained years of on-screen tension they could never quite put into words. Suddenly, moments that once seemed confusing now make grim sense. And this is why the book is resonating so deeply right now. Kody doesn't present these moments as isolated incidents. She outlines a repeating pattern: control of intimacy, manipulation of emotions, and the slow diminishing of individual women that countless readers immediately recognize from their own lives. Across social media, women are connecting to they've been staring at for years. The emotional rules, the financial imbalance, the way power was maintained not through chaos, but through consistency. Even legal observers are paying attention because these personal revelations don't stand alone. They intersect with larger themes Kody lays out elsewhere in the book: money decisions, emotional harm, and a long history of being told her needs mattered less. This isn't just a memoir anymore. It's a record. And the most powerful line threading through all of it is this: Kody didn't lose herself when she left. She found herself. And now that she knows who she is, she's no longer willing to protect a system that only survived by keeping her silent. And this is where the story crosses from uncomfortable into deeply disturbing. According to Kody, Once she stopped complying with Kody's demands, Robin stepped in, not as a supportive sister wife, but as a quiet interrogator. Christine writes that Robin began questioning her about why she had stopped doing the massages, framing it as concern for Kody. She reportedly reminded Christine that he was a wonderful husband and deserved that kind of treatment. Think about what that does to your mind. You're already hurt because your husband refuses to give you the same affection you're expected to provide. You're already questioning your worth. And then another woman, someone who benefits most from his favor, inserts herself and asks why you aren't meeting his physical needs. Suddenly, you're the problem for expecting basic reciprocity. That's not support. That's pressure disguised as righteousness. Early readers point out something crucial here. This wasn't a one-time conversation. Multiple people who accessed advanced copies say Christine describes this as a pattern. Robin didn't just comment once. She routinely monitored how the other wives treated Kody and felt comfortable voicing opinions. One Reddit user said it was painful to read how Robin positioned herself as the authority on what made a good wife. And this is where the religious context matters. Christine came from a belief system where women are taught, explicitly, that pleasing their husband is a sacred duty. Her needs were never framed as equal. They were framed as secondary. So when Kody demanded an hour of physical service and refused to return even a fraction of that care, it wasn't presented as selfishness. It was wrapped in spiritual language. Normal marriage give and take was distorted into obligation. This is the red flag every woman recognizes once she's lived it. When someone requires effort, labor, and sacrifice from you but refuses to meet you halfway, that's not love. That's exploitation. And when guilt, religion, or tradition are used to shame you for wanting normal affection, that's not faith. That's emotional control executed with precision. But the massage story is only the beginning. Christine's book takes a darker turn when she describes Robin's deeper role in Kody's personal affairs. Robin wasn't just wife number 4. Christine portrays her as the gatekeeper, the observer, the enforcer, the person Kody turned to first, not only for comfort, but for oversight of his other marriages. What Christine alleges next is the part that has readers genuinely unsettled. She claims Kody shared specific intimate details from his relationships with each wife directly with Robin. Not general emotional struggles. Not vague relationship complaints. But details that should never leave a private space. Armed with that information, Robin would then approach the other wives with advice, coaching them on how to perform better for their husband. Remember when Robin said on the show that she never talked about anyone else's bedroom? Christine says that wasn't true at all. According to her account, Robin wasn't just talking about these private matters. She was actively intervening, questioning behavior, correcting dynamics. And when Christine stopped doing the massages, it was Robin who confronted her, making her feel guilty for failing to meet Kody's expectations. Now take this out of the sister wives bubble for a second. If your husband shared intimate details of your marriage with another woman, and that woman then came to you to critique how you behave as a wife, most people would call that an immediate and unforgivable breach of trust. Marriages end over far less. But in the Brown family structure, Christine describes this behavior as being normalized, even praised. Robin was labeled a good sister wife, not because she supported the women, but because she reinforced the hierarchy. Christine paints a picture of Robin gathering information, inserting herself emotionally, and then reporting back to Kody. Readers say the most chilling parts involve moments where Robin would cry with Christine, appear vulnerable, claim she wanted closeness, only to later relay those conversations in altered form. Bonding on the surface.
Surveillance internite.
Mind games disguised as connection.
And it worked.
Perfectly. The wives stayed divided. Trust eroded. And Robin, despite being the newest member of the family, with no history of the sacrifices, financial strain, or emotional labor the others endured for decades, positioned herself as the judge of their marital performance. This is the cycle Christine is warning about. One woman becomes the expert. Another is made to feel inadequate. A man's behavior is excused, defended, and systematized. And slowly, The women stop comparing notes because the system ensures they never feel safe enough to do so. Christine didn't just leave a marriage. She escaped a structure designed to keep her questioning herself, while everyone else called it love. And this is the moment where the story stops being shocking and starts being heartbreaking. Christine makes something painfully clear in her book. When someone pretends to be worried just to extract private details and then later uses those details to shift power in their favor, that isn't friendship. That's strategy. That's a calculated mental game. And according to Christine, the system that Robin and Kody built went far beyond checking in on relationships. It was surveillance dressed up as concern. What Christine shares next explains years of what viewers sensed but could never quite articulate. Her wedding night. Christine reminds readers that she had never kissed anyone before that day. Not once. No experience. No frame of reference. Her very first kiss happened at the ceremony itself. She entered marriage with complete trust, believing Kody, who already had 2 wives, would be gentle, patient, and aware that she didn't know what came next. She believed he would guide her with care. That's not what happened. Christine describes a beginning to married life that was physically painful and emotionally devastating. Instead of tenderness, she experienced distress. Instead of warmth, she felt ignored. She writes about crying, not from joy, but from pain and deep sorrow. The night she had dreamed about for years, the moment she thought would make her feel cherished and beautiful, became something she endured rather than celebrated. She had imagined softness, thoughtful touch, feeling loved in her body and spirit. She imagined being held, reassured, made to feel safe. Instead, she describes what felt like a complete disregard for her comfort, as though her feelings didn't factor into the equation at all. And then comes the detail that left early readers stunned. Christine says she spent the entire honeymoon too sore to initiate closeness again.
Sit with that.
A woman's introduction to marriage, something meant to be joyful and bonding, was so physically and emotionally difficult that it erased any sense of romance from the experience altogether. That kind of beginning doesn't fade. It imprints. What makes this even more painful is the context Christine lays out next. Kody had already been through this twice. He knew what to expect. He knew Christine had no experience whatsoever. And yet, according to her account, there was no visible effort to make that moment kind, gentle, or even emotionally safe for her. Readers who received advance copies say this chapter is one of the hardest to get through. One Reddit user said it finally explained why Christine spent years seeking approval, reassurance, and signs that she was doing okay as a wife. When your first experience of intimacy is marked by pain instead of care, you don't stop longing for what you never received, you chase it. Christine's story reveals how that pattern began. When affection is something you have to earn rather than something you're offered freely, you start working for it. You adjust yourself. You minimize your needs. You convince yourself that if you just try harder, you'll eventually receive the tenderness you were owed from the start. And this is the lesson Christine leaves hanging in the air for every woman reading her words. When love begins without care, the damage doesn't stay in the past. It shapes everything that comes after. And this is where Christine's story stops being about disappointment and becomes a warning. Christine makes a statement that cuts straight to the truth. A partner who truly values you will always prioritize your comfort, especially in vulnerable moments. And when one person has experience and the other does not, the responsibility to slow down, to be patient, to be gentle, becomes even greater. What Christine describes about her wedding night wasn't just an unfortunate start. It was a preview of a pattern. That first night signaled the same self-centeredness and emotional blindness that would define their entire intimate relationship. From the very beginning, Christine says Kody showed her that her comfort, her body, and her feelings ranked far below his own wants. And that disregard didn't stay confined to the bedroom. It spilled into every corner of their life together. One of the most infuriating revelations in Christine's book involves how Kody handled private information. This wasn't venting. This wasn't confiding in a trusted partner. Christine describes it as a routine breach of trust, where deeply personal moments were stripped of privacy and repurposed as leverage. According to Christine, Kody regularly shared detailed accounts of his intimate experiences with each wife directly with Robin. Not surface-level marital frustrations. Not emotional struggles couples might discuss with a counselor or friend. But explicit details that should have stayed between two people. Moments meant to be sacred were turned into data. And Robin didn't just listen. Christine says Robin used that information to position herself as the authority on marriage, quietly undermining the confidence of the other wives. When Kody complained that Christine wasn't doing what he wanted, Robin would approach her with guidance on how to be a better wife. Imagine realizing that your most vulnerable experiences are being analyzed, judged, and corrected by another woman, one who benefits from your perceived failure. Christine writes that she began to feel watched, evaluated, as though her private life was under review. Robin wasn't supporting her, she was monitoring her. Early readers say they felt violated just reading those passages. One Reddit commenter noted it finally explained why the wives always appeared guarded whenever intimacy came up on the show. They weren't just navigating their own relationships. They knew everything could be filtered back to Robin for critique. And that's what makes this so calculated. Robin used access to information to solidify her position at the top of the family hierarchy. By presenting herself as the wife who met Kody's needs, while subtly suggesting the others didn't, she elevated herself without ever appearing openly cruel. It also explains why Christine often seemed uncertain or defensive about her relationship on camera. Try working through normal marital struggles while knowing your husband is sharing your private conflicts with someone who's quietly competing against you. The red flags here are impossible to ignore. When a partner shares intimate details without consent, that's a fundamental betrayal. When those details are used to make you feel inadequate or to justify neglect, that's not communication. It's manipulation disguised as openness. But Christine makes it clear. The bedroom dynamics were only one layer of a much larger pattern of abandonment. She details how that same lack of care showed up during critical moments when any supportive partner would step in without hesitation. When Christine underwent knee surgery and required pain medication, she asked Kody to stay with her. She was in pain, confused about dosages, vulnerable. His response? He said he didn't do pain meds and left her alone. Think about that image. You're freshly out of surgery. You're hurting. You're unsure. You ask your husband to stay, and he walks out. Christine writes that it was her teenage daughters and her mother who stepped in to care for her. The support he was supposed to provide came from everyone except him. And this wasn't an isolated incident. Christine explains that Kody was rarely present in the homes of the first 3 wives except to sleep or eat. He wasn't actively parenting. He wasn't participating in daily life. He wasn't showing up emotionally. He functioned more like a guest who expected service rather than a partner contributing to a family. The most devastating example comes with their daughter, Truly. Christine recounts a moment when Truly became seriously ill. Christine wasn't home. The older kids called Kody, telling him their little sister was in trouble. And he didn't come. He stayed with Robin's children instead. Let that sink in. A father is told his child may be gravely ill, and he chooses not to show up. Christine writes that if Truly had died as a result of that neglect, she would have left immediately.
No hesitation.
No second chances. This is what Christine's book ultimately exposes. Not just favoritism, not just neglect, but a consistent pattern where one woman and her children were prioritized, while another wife was left to manage pain, fear, illness, and motherhood alone. The intimacy manipulation, the emotional abandonment, the financial isolation. They weren't separate issues. They were the same story, told in different moments. And once Christine saw the pattern clearly, she realized something powerful. She wasn't asking for too much. She was surviving on far too little. And here's the truth: Christine says she doesn't soften anymore. She only stayed as long as she did because Truly survived. That realization alone has left early readers furious. Many said this section of the book was the hardest to read, not because it was dramatic, but because it was so cold in its clarity. One Reddit commenter summed it up perfectly, saying it showed exactly how Kody abandoned his responsibilities to his original families once Robin entered the picture. And for Christine, the emotional abandonment was devastating, but the financial abandonment cut just as deep. Christine confirms that all income flowed into one shared family account. On paper, that sounds equal. In reality, she says Kody and Robin controlled how the money was spent. At the same time, Christine was working constantly, even pulling night shifts while pregnant, just to keep her household afloat. When she asked Kody to help with basic parenting, things most fathers don't think twice about, like tucking the kids in while she worked, his answer was no. He told her to figure it out or ask the sister wives. Let that land. He had stepped away from daily parenting entirely, yet still maintained authority over the family's finances. Christine describes a setup that many women instantly recognize. Money tightly controlled, emotional labor ignored, and responsibility shifted downward. A trap where one person keeps giving, working, sacrificing, while receiving nothing in return. And this is where everything viewers couldn't quite explain on the show suddenly makes sense. Christine describes Robin's strategy as quiet, consistent, and devastatingly effective. While the other wives still believed in balance, in mutual care, emotional connection, and shared effort, Robin played by a completely different rulebook. Total compliance. No resistance. No requests of her own. Whatever Kody wanted, whenever he wanted it, however he wanted it, she delivered. She did the hour-long massages without complaint. She indulged his preferences. She never challenged his authority or asked for more than he was willing to give. And in return, she received everything the others were starving for: time, attention, resources, and presence. Kody lived at Robin's house. He prioritized her children, even when it meant ignoring the safety and needs of his other kids. He opened family funds to her household while the other wives took on side hustles just to survive. And yet, Robin still positioned herself as the expert, the one who felt entitled to tell the others they weren't being good enough wives. Christine points out the cruel irony. It's easy to give advice about serving a man when your own needs are being fully met. After Robin joined the family, Christine says Kody essentially stopped having meaningful time with his original children. He'd show up late, eat, sleep, and leave early, always heading back to Robin's home. The first three families became providers of convenience while his real life happened somewhere else. Early readers say this realization made them feel physically uncomfortable. Not because it was shocking, but because it was so clearly intentional. Christine doesn't paint Robin as a better match by chance. She describes her as someone who deliberately positioned herself as the wife who wouldn't demand, wouldn't challenge, and wouldn't disrupt Kody's ego. And once she secured that position, she used it to monitor and correct the other wives. She could question Christine about missing massages because she knew she was safe. She had nothing to lose by making the others feel inadequate. The most unsettling part of this system is how perfectly it turned the women against each other. Instead of recognizing that they were all being exploited by the same arrangement, the wives were pushed into competition, fighting over scraps of attention from a man incapable of meeting any of their emotional needs. While Christine was struggling with rejection and neglect, Robin was telling her she simply wasn't trying hard enough. And that's the final wake-up call Christine's story delivers. This wasn't about love. It wasn't about faith. It was about control, maintained by dividing women, rewarding compliance, and punishing anyone who dared to ask for more. And now that the spell is broken, the rest of the sister wives' world is starting to see it too. And now, this story has officially broken out of the sister wives' bubble. From Reddit threads to Facebook groups to private text chats, women everywhere are connecting they've been staring at for years. One Redditor said Christine's revelations finally explained why she always sounded so careful, almost rehearsed, during family conversations on the show. Another admitted the bedroom details made her physically uncomfortable, but also clarified manipulative patterns she'd lived through herself and never had words for. And that's the shift right here. This is no longer just about sister wives. It's about women recognizing themselves in Christine's story. Across platforms, women are speaking up about partners who demanded service but offered nothing in return. Partners who shared private details to gain leverage. Partners who had selfish behavior behind religion, tradition, or family values. Christine's willingness to say the quiet parts out loud has triggered something powerful, a collective moment of recognition, especially around polygamy and strict Mormon cultural practices. Facebook groups are overflowing with posts from women who escaped similar systems. They're backing Christine up, sharing stories of manipulation dressed up as faith, obedience sold as virtue, and sacrifice praised only when it benefited men. What's even more striking is how many women in monogamous marriages see the same patterns. The hour-long massage demand, the refusal to reciprocate affection, using third parties to monitor behavior. These tactics are not exclusive to plural marriage. TikTok creators are now breaking down Christine's experiences as warning signs, mini masterclasses on spotting emotional manipulation in relationships. The massage story, in particular, has become shorthand for one-way intimacy, expectation without effort, service without partnership. And the timing couldn't be more perfect. Women who spent years blaming themselves for not being good enough, wives are suddenly realizing their anger wasn't a flaw, it was information. Even lawyers are weighing in. Legal professionals following the story are pointing out that the cycles Christine describes mirror real patterns of emotional and financial abuse. They're explaining that manipulation wrapped in religious language is still manipulation, that control disguised as spiritual duty is still control. And the most impactful response isn't coming from commentators, it's coming from women quietly reevaluating their own relationships. They're asking harder questions now. Is there balance here? Is there respect? Am I receiving the same teamwork I'm expected to give? Christine's story has cracked open a much larger conversation about women's worth in relationships and the critical difference between supporting someone you love and being used by someone who doesn't value you. What she exposes goes far beyond one dysfunctional family. It's a system that's existed for centuries in tight-knit faith communities, men entitled to service, women taught to be grateful for scraps, desire framed as duty, and silence praised as holiness. Former members of rigid Mormon sects are speaking out, saying Christine's life mirrors their own. Religious insiders confirm that what Christine described as massage requests are essentially unpaid labor wrapped in sexual obligation, obedience dressed up as God's will. Add money control to that equation. Women working side jobs while men control finances, and what you get is exploitation disguised as structure. Christine's strength lies in how clearly she names the tactics. Isolation. Women turned against each other. Constant monitoring of obedience. Experts in religious trauma say these are textbook control mechanisms. The most insidious part? Women are trained to blame themselves. When Christine stopped the massages, she wasn't seen as a woman with reasonable needs. She was labeled a bad wife. That same pattern shows up everywhere religion or culture supports one-sided relationships. Women in traditional marriages are now recognizing similar dynamics in their own lives. Child development professionals are also weighing in, explaining how kids raised in these environments learn that women's needs don't matter and that men's comfort always comes first. Christine's story about truly being overlooked while Kody prioritized Robin's children illustrates exactly how deeply these choices wound children. But here's the part that changes everything. Christine didn't just expose the system, she walked out of it. Her decision to pursue child support wasn't only about money. It was about accountability, about forcing the legal system to recognize a father who had emotionally erased his own child. Sometimes the most loving thing a parent can do is demand responsibility where neglect once lived. What makes Christine's book so powerful isn't revenge. Early readers agree on that. She doesn't write with bitterness. She writes with clarity, the kind that only comes when you're finally free from the fog. Every page marks her transition from a woman begging for approval to one speaking truth for herself and for countless others. Kody Brown isn't just telling her story. She's changing the conversation about what women deserve in relationships. And what hits hardest is this. She said out loud what so many women have always known but were never allowed to say. Now, I want to hear from you. Do you think Christine's honesty will push other reality TV wives to finally tell their truths? And what shocked you more? the massage demands, or the way Robin was used to monitor the other wives. Hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications because the next Sister Wives update is going to open even more eyes.